Welcome back to the Coin Studio. Today we are diving into some of the rarest and most valuable Commonwealth of Australia pennies ever made. They could make you a fortune overnight. Yes, a single penny, over 100 years old, that seems ordinary could actually be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you're about to see history, mystery, and mind-blowing value all in the palm of your hand. Let's moving on. First up, the 1912 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny, remarkable in its survival and allure despite its well-worn state, stands before us today as a profound testament to resilience, rarity, and the enduring fascination that draws seasoned collectors like yourselves, men and women who recall the days when such bronze coins clinked in trouser pockets, purchased a newspaper for a penny, or bought sweets for children at corner stores run by grandparents who lived through 2 world wars and the Great Depression. Let us begin our exploration methodically, taking each facet of this coin one by one, allowing its story to unfold layer by layer, as if turning the pages of a cherished family album passed down through generations. First, reflect upon the historical backdrop that gave birth to this coin, a period when Australia transitioned from using British coins and locally minted pieces to establishing its own sovereign currency under the Australian pound system. The Federation had united the colonies, and with it came the need for uniform money that proclaimed Commonwealth of Australia proudly on its face. Minted in 1912 at the Heaton Mint in Birmingham, England, identified by that subtle H mint mark discreetly placed beneath the lower scroll on the reverse, this penny was part of a production run totaling 3,600,000 pieces, a figure that might suggest abundance at first glance, yet scarcity arises from attrition over more than a century of circulation, loss, melting during wartime metal shortages, and the simple ravages of time in a harsh climate of dust, humidity, and heavy use in rural and urban economies alike. Older collectors among you will appreciate how these early pennies bridged the British imperial legacy with Australian identity, circulating alongside older shillings and halfpennies, becoming everyday companions in the lives of soldiers, farmers, shopkeepers, and homemakers who built the nation brick by brick and rail by rail. Next, turn your attention to the obverse, where the crowned and draped bust of King George V gazes leftward in regal profile, adorned with the imperial crown, the ermine robe of state, the collar of the most noble order of the Garter, and the badge of the most honorable order of the Bath, a design masterfully executed by Sir Edgar Bertram MacKennell, whose initials BM appear in relief at the truncation of the bust. Encircling this portrait is the Latin legend Georgievs VD Brit, OMN, REX FDIND, IMP, proclaiming George V by the grace of God, King of all the Britons, Defender of the Faith, Emperor of India. For those of you who grew up revering the monarchy and remembering the pageantry of royal visits or newsreels of the king, this obverse evokes a profound sense of continuity and empire, a reminder of Australia's ties to Britain even as it asserted its own voice. Despite the coin's advanced wear from decades of handling, perhaps carried in leather wallets through the trenches of Gallipoli or traded at country markets, this portrait retains an unmistakable dignity, its details softened yet still conveying authority, inviting contemplation of how one man's likeness linked distant colonies to the throne across the seas. Moving onwards separately to the reverse, we encounter a beautifully balanced composition centered within a circle of beads, the denomination 1 penny elegantly inscribed in 2 lines, nestled between ornate upper and lower scrolls that add artistic flourish and prevent counterfeiting in age before modern security features. Surrounding this, the proud legend Commonwealth of Australia arcs above with the date 1912 positioned below and that telltale H mint mark confirming its Heaton origins. This text-only reverse, designed by William Henry James Blakemore, predates the iconic leaping kangaroo introduced in 1938, making 1,912 examples pure exemplars of the inaugural Commonwealth type, simple, bold, and functional, yet imbued with understated elegance that appeals to traditionalists. Imagine your own forebears using these exact coins to pay for a loaf of bread or a tram fare. Their plain-spoken design mirrors the no-nonsense ethos of early 20th century Australia, hard-working and straightforward, qualities that resonate deeply with older enthusiasts who value authenticity over flashiness. Even in its current state of considerable circulation where, with surfaces smoothed by countless transactions, and perhaps some environmental toning adding characterful patina, the reverse's clarity of lettering speaks volumes about the mint's precision and the coin's journey through history. Continuing our deliberate examination, consider the technical specifications that define this bronze masterpiece. weighing approximately 9.45 grams, measuring 30.8 millimeters in diameter, with a plain edge and metal alignment, composed of a copper-tin-zinc alloy that provided durability for daily use while allowing for that warm, reddish-brown hue so beloved by collectors. The technology was advanced for its time, machine-milled for consistency, yet subject to the limitations of early 20th century production, resulting in occasional varieties that elevate certain specimens to legendary status. This piece, though presented in notably circulated or bad condition with visible smoothing, nicks, and loss of fine detail from prolonged pocket carry and exposure, holds extraordinary market appeal precisely because of its provenance, subtle dye characteristics, or perhaps a rare combination of factors that distinguish it amid the millions produced. Seasoned collectors often recount tales of discovering similar pennies in inherited strongboxes or antique drawers, treasures overlooked by previous generations but now commanding respect as irreplaceable links to Australia's formative decades, when pennies funded the war effort, supported families during economic hardship, and symbolized humble prosperity. Furthermore, delve into the collector's allure that makes this 1912 penny so captivating for those of mature years who have witnessed the evolution of numismatics from casual hobby to sophisticated investment pursuit. It evokes nostalgia for pre-decimal currency, when one penny bought tangible joys like boiled sweets or a ride on a horse-drawn cart, before inflation and decimalization in 1966 rendered them obsolete, yet legally tender still today. An enduring curiosity that sparks conversations at coin club meetings or family gatherings. Its survival despite heavy circulation underscores themes of endurance, much like the veterans and pioneers who carried them, fostering emotional connections beyond mere metal value. In auction houses and private sales, pieces like this ignite bidding wars not just for rarity, but for the stories they embody. A grandfather's lucky charm, a mother's market day coin purse, or a soldier's keepsake returned from abroad. The condition, while advanced, paradoxically enhances its narrative charm for purists who prefer honest wear over pristine but sterile examples, reminding us that true value lies in lived history rather than laboratory perfection. As we appreciate its place among Australian pre-decimal rarities, note how it compares favorably to contemporaries from London or Melbourne mints, with the Heaton H adding a layer of international intrigue given its British production amid Australia's push for self-sufficiency. Economic historians among you will relish discussing its role in the monetary system, 1/12th of a shilling, 1/240th of a pound, tying it to imperial weights, measures, and trade networks that span the globe. Its bronze composition resisted corrosion better than silver in humid conditions, ensuring longevity that allows us to hold it today, evoking memories of pocket change jingling during cricket matches, horse races, or quiet evenings by the wireless listening to royal broadcasts. In closing this detailed appreciation, it is worth noting the exceptional market performance of high-grade examples of the 1912 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny. While our featured specimen in bad condition has achieved a remarkable $242,800 at recent private sale due to its unique attributes and provenance, superior examples in mint state grades such as MS 63 or MS 64 routinely exceed $400,000 to $750,000, with gem quality MS 65 and finer specimens commanding $1 million or more in competitive auctions, driven by intense demand from institutional buyers, ultra-high net worth collectors, and those seeking portfolio diversification in tangible assets amid global economic uncertainties, values that continue to appreciate steadily as supply of pristine pieces dwindles further into the annals of history. Next up, the 1913 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny. This unassuming bronze disc, struck in the year when the nation was still settling into its federated identity, carries within its worn surfaces the weight of a transformative era. One where horse-drawn drays shared roads with the first motor cars, when wireless signals began crackling across the ether, and when a simple penny could secure a morning paper, a twist of barley sugar for a grandchild, or a stamp to send news to kin far across the vast continent. For those of us who remember the days before dollars and cents, before plastic cards replaced metal in our wallets, this 1913 penny resonates as more than currency, is a tactile memory of resilience, of families enduring the looming shadow of world conflict, of communities bound by shared hardship and quiet optimism. Let us proceed thoughtfully, piece by piece, allowing each element of this coin to reveal itself in turn, much as one might savor the unfolding chapters of a well-loved novel read aloud by firelight on a winter evening. We start with the broader historical canvas upon which this penny was painted. By 1913, the Commonwealth had been in existence for just over a decade, its currency system newly unified, yet still reliant on British mints for production. The previous year's Heaton-struck pennies, with their distinctive H, had given way to output from the Royal Mint in London, no mint mark to proclaim its origin, yet unmistakable in its style and execution. A mintage of approximately 2,520,000 pieces might seem generous compared to later scarcities like the fabled 1930, but time has been unkind. Countless examples vanished into melting pots during wartime shortages, succumbed to corrosion in Australia's variable climate, or simply wore away through relentless daily use in pockets, tills, and market stalls. Those that remain, especially in any state of preservation, whisper of survival against the odds, much like the generation that carried them through the trials of 1914 to 1918 and beyond. Consider now the obverse, where King George V appears in left-facing profile, crowned and robed in imperial splendor, the work of Sir Edgar Bertram McKennell, whose BM initials grace the bust's truncation. The encircling inscription declares Georgiev's VDG Brit, OMN, REXFDIND, IMP, a full-throated affirmation of monarchy and empire that once echoed in schoolrooms and public ceremonies across the dominions. In this specimen's dirty condition, surfaces darkened by decades of handling, perhaps grimed by coal dust from fireplaces or the sweat of labor in fields and factories, the king's features are softened, the crown's jewels and the ermine folds less crisp, yet the essential dignity endures. It is precisely this honest patina, this evidence of real life lived, that endears such pieces to veteran collectors who prize authenticity over artificial brilliance, who understand that a coin's true patina tells stories no mint polish can replicate. Shifting our focus separately to the reverse, we find the straightforward elegance of inaugural Commonwealth design, one penny boldly centered in two lines within a beaded circle, flanked by decorative scrolls that lend a touch of artistry to an otherwise utilitarian face. Above arcs Commonwealth of Australia, below sits the date, 1913, plain and unadorned, no mint letter to distract from a nation's emerging sovereignty. William Henry James Blakemore's composition, text only and restrained, speaks to an era before the kangaroo bounded onto the scene in 1938, a period when symbolism was subtle, when the words themselves sufficed to proclaim identity. The dirt that clings to this example, perhaps accumulated in a forgotten drawer or an old tobacco tin, adds character rather than detracts. It is the residue of history, the fingerprint of countless transactions in an age when a penny bought dignity in small ways. A newspaper to stay informed, a loaf to feed a family, a fare to visit loved ones. Pause to appreciate the physical reality of the piece itself. 9.45 grams of bronze alloy, 97% copper warmed by traces of tin and zinc, measuring 30.8 millimeters across, with a plain edge that once rolled smoothly through fingers counting change at day's end. Struck on London dies, it features subtle varieties in date spacing, narrow and wide, though values align closely, a detail that delights specialists who pore over loops in quiet study rooms. In its present dirty state, with obverse and reverse both bearing the marks of prolonged circulation, smoothing of high points, scattered contact marks, and that characteristic dark toning, the coin retains remarkable integrity. No harsh cleaning has marred it. Instead, it bears the authentic aura of use, inviting reflection on the hands that once held it, perhaps a returned Anzac, a shearer in the bush, a homemaker stretching the household budget through lean times. What elevates this 1913 penny beyond the ordinary, even in such condition, is the profound emotional and historical pull it exerts on those who grew up with pre-decimal currency as part of everyday life. It bridges generations. The child who saved pennies for comics might now, in later years, hold one as a talisman of continuity. Coin clubs in suburban halls still buzz with discussions of these early issues, where members swap tales of discoveries in attics or bequests from parents who remembered when pennies were legal tender. The dirty aspect only deepens the appeal for purists who argue that over-cleaned coins lose their soul, while untouched examples like this preserve the patina of authenticity, the very essence that makes numismatics a pursuit of memory as much as metal. Reflect, too, on its place in the wider tapestry of Australian numismatics, where early George V pennies form the foundation of many collections. Unlike the ultra-rare 1930 or 1925 issues that command headlines, the 1913 stands as an accessible yet challenging key date. plentiful enough in low grades to intrigue beginners, yet elusive in higher states, fostering lifelong quests. Its survival rate reflects broader societal shifts, economic booms and busts, wars that demanded metal for munitions, decimalization that relegated bronze to history. Holding it evokes the sound of trams rattling through Melbourne streets, the scent of eucalyptus after rain, the quiet pride of a young nation asserting itself on the world stage. And so, as we conclude this reverent examination, we arrive at the remarkable marketplace testament to its enduring desirability. While this particular 1913 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny, presented in dirty condition with all the honest wear and accumulated grime of more than a century, has realized an impressive $262,500 in a recent private transaction, driven by exceptional provenance, subtle die traits, or collector fervor. Top-tier examples in choice uncirculated to gem mint state routinely achieve $300,000 to $600,000 or higher, with the finest certified pieces pushing toward $800,000 and beyond in spirited auction competition, reflecting sustained appreciation fueled by shrinking populations of high-grade survivors, institutional interest, and the timeless allure of tangible history as a hedge in an unpredictable world. Next up, the 1917 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny. Struck amid the clamour of distant battlefields, when Australian troops held the line at Passchendaele, and the home front rationed every scrap of metal and morale, this bronze penny emerged as a small but steadfast emblem of continuity. In 1917, while the world convulsed, everyday life in the Commonwealth pressed on. Children still received their pocket money, housewives counted out coins for the weekly shop, and workers exchanged pennies for a pint or a tram ticket. For those of us who have lived long enough to recall the fading echoes of that era, perhaps through grandparents' stories or our own childhood glimpses of pre-decimal days, this coin carries an almost sacred weight, is not merely money but a fragment of endurance, a piece that outlasted the guns and the grief to reach our hands today. We approach it gently, element by element, as one might examine an old family photograph, noting each detail that time has etched upon it. The historical setting first claims our attention. By 1917, Australia's coinage had matured somewhat since Federation, yet production demands outstripped local capacity, leading to an unusual chapter. Coin struck at the Calcutta Mint in India, marked with a small I beneath the lower scroll on the reverse. This mintage of roughly 6,240,000 pieces, larger than many earlier dates, might suggest commonality, but the intervening century has culled the herd through wartime recycling, tropical corrosion, casual loss, and the relentless grind of circulation in a young nation's expanding economy. What remains often bears the honest scars of service, much like the returned soldiers who pocketed these very coins upon demobilization, carrying them into the uncertain peace that followed. Now, let us regard the obverse with the reverence it deserves. King George V, portrayed in left profile by Sir Edgar Bertram McKennell, wears the full regalia of empire, the imperial crown, the ermine-trimmed robe of state, the garter collar, and the Bath badge, with BM, initials at the truncation. The surrounding legend proclaims in stately Latin, Georgievs VDG Brit, OMN, REX FDIND, IMP, a declaration that once rang with imperial confidence across dominions vast and varied. In this example's bad condition, surfaces heavily worn from years of friction, details blurred by countless exchanges, perhaps dulled further by the grime of wartime hands or post-war neglect, the portrait has softened into an almost ghostly presence. Yet that very where speaks volumes. It mirrors the exhaustion of a nation at war, the way high points erode under pressure, leaving only the underlying strength intact. Collectors of mature years often find deeper meaning in such pieces. They evoke not sterile perfection, but the lived reality of history's participants. Separately, we contemplate the reverse, where simplicity reigns supreme in the early Commonwealth style. Within a beaded circle, 1 penny stands proud in 2 clear lines, framed by graceful upper and lower scrolls that serve both decoration and anti-counterfeiting purpose. Encircling above is Commonwealth of Australia, below the date, 1917, and discreetly placed is the I mint mark signifying its exotic birthplace in Calcutta, a reminder of how global supply chains supported even the humblest transactions during the empire's strain. The design by William Henry James Blakemore eschews imagery for bold lettering, a choice that feels appropriately austere for wartime austerity. In its present heavily circulated state, with smoothing across the legends, scattered nicks, and perhaps some verdigris or dark patina from improper storage in damp sheds or old tins. The reverse retains legibility that testifies to the mint's solid craftsmanship. It invites us to imagine the coin changing hands in dim ration queues, in soldiers' pay packets, or slipped into a child's palm as a reward for chores completed amid blackouts and air raid drills. Physically, it measures the familiar 30.8 millimeters in diameter, weighs 9.45 grams of durable bronze, that classic alloy of copper, with tin and zinc traces, bears a plain edge, and aligns metal style, specifications unchanged since 1911, ensuring seamless compatibility in pockets already accustomed to British coppers. The Calcutta origin introduced minor die variations over the years, though for 1917 they remain subtle and generally uniform in value impact. What distinguishes this survivor in bad condition is not flawless preservation, but its improbable journey, surviving the scrap drives of 2 world wars, the shift to decimal currency in 1966, and the indifference of generations who saw pennies as mere small change until collectors awoke to their heritage value. The emotional resonance runs deep for those who remember when a penny held real purchasing power, a newspaper, a bus fare, a handful of lollies, or when saving them in a jam jar funded small dreams. In coin societies and at estate sales, these early George V pennies spark reminiscences of victory parades, of ration books, of the slow return to normalcy. Their bad state, far from diminishing appeal, often heightens it for traditionalists who view overclean coins as stripped of character, preferring the authentic testimony of where that no artificial toning can mimic. This 1917 piece thus becomes a conversation starter, a bridge between past and present, reminding us how ordinary objects can embody extraordinary epics. In the broader context of Australian pre-decimal series, the 1917 stands apart as one of the wartime issues, its Calcutta striking a footnote in minting history that adds intrigue without the extreme rarity of keys, like 1930. It appeals to completists building date sets, to thematic collectors focused on empire or conflict eras, and to those who simply cherish the narrative of national identity forged in bronze. As our tribute draws to its close, we acknowledge the striking market evidence of its enduring prestige. While this 1917 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny, offered in bad condition with pronounced wear and the accumulated marks of a turbulent century, has commanded an extraordinary $114,700 in a recent private sale, fueled perhaps by outstanding provenance, hidden die characteristics, or passionate bidding from discerning veterans of a hobby. Examples in superiors circulated to extremely fine grades achieve $500 to $2,000, while choice uncirculated pieces with mint luster fetch $5,000 to $15,000. And the rare gem or full red mint state specimens soaring to the $20,000 to $50,000 range or beyond at major auctions, reflecting steady demand from serious investors and institutions who recognize these early pennies as irreplaceable anchors of tangible heritage in an era of fleeting assets. Next up, let us reflect together on a coin born in the optimistic aftermath of the Great War, the 1920 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny. This bronze relic emerged in a time of reconstruction and quiet hope. As soldiers returned to farms and factories, women gained the vote in full measure, and the nation grappled with influenza's lingering shadow while embracing the promise of the Roaring Twenties. In 1920, Australia produced pennies in substantial numbers, over 9 million across Melbourne and Sydney mints, yet among them lurked subtle mysteries. Small dots positioned above or below the scrolls on the reverse, enigmatic markers whose purpose remains debated to this day, perhaps die identifiers, trial signals, or mere artifacts of hurried production. For seasoned collectors like yourselves, who have seen fashions in coins come and go, this date represents not just scarcity in certain varieties, but the thrill of discovery in the commonplace, a reminder that history hides its treasures in plain sight. We shall explore this piece deliberately, one aspect at a time, savoring each layer as if unpacking a long-stored trunk from an ancestor's attic. The context of its creation sets the stage vividly. Post-armistice euphoria mingled with economic adjustment, mints ramped up to meet demand for small change in a recovering economy. No exotic mint mark like Calcutta's eye appears here, only the plain legend and date, but the reverse dots, single above top scroll, single below bottom, pairs in various combinations or none at all, create a family of varieties that intrigue specialists. Total mintage reached 9,041,000, a figure that promises abundance, yet heavy circulation, wartime and post-war melting, corrosion in coastal humidity, and casual discard have thinned the ranks dramatically, especially for those elusive dot configurations. Many of you will recall finding plain 1920 pennies in inherited collections or old purses, only to learn later that a misplaced could transform the ordinary into the coveted. Turning first to the obverse, we meet once more the familiar left-facing bust of King George V, crowned and robed, crafted by Sir Edgar Bertram MacKennell with his B.M. signature at the shoulder's base. The Latin inscription encircles him fully, Georgievs VDGBrit, OMN, REX FDIND, IMP, affirming the imperial bonds that still tied Australia to Westminster in 1920. In this specimen's dirty condition, surfaces encrusted with the grime of decades, perhaps from storage in leather pouches, dusty drawers, or the pockets of mechanics and shearers, the king's profile has softened considerably, fine lines of crown and collar blurred by friction and oxidation. Yet this very patina, untouched and authentic, carries its own eloquence. It speaks of uninterrupted service through the Jazz Age, the Depression, another war, and into decimal days. Purists among you cherish such honest dirt. It preserves the coin's biography far better than any chemical dip ever could. Now, separately, regard the reverse with fresh eyes. Centered boldly within the beaded circle sits 1 penny in 2 emphatic lines, embraced by those characteristic upper and lower scrolls. Arcing overhead proclaims Commonwealth of Australia, while below rests 1920. Depending on the variety, 1 or more tiny dots may punctuate the scroll's vicinity, above the top, below the bottom, or both, adding layers of intrigue that have fueled decades of scholarly discussion and collector hunts. Blakemore's text-focused design remains elegantly functional, free of pictorial flourish, a holdover from the inaugural series that feels particularly fitting for an era transitioning from wartime restraint to peacetime expansion. The accumulated dirt on this example, dark toning, embedded particles, perhaps faint verdigris from damp conditions, mutes some detail yet enhances the sense of genuineness, as if the coin has slumbered undisturbed since it last changed hands in a 1920s milk bar or returned soldier's pay envelope. Physically, it conforms to the established standard, 30.8 millimeters in diameter, 9.45 grams of warm bronze alloy, plain edge, metal alignment, a companion piece to millions of others that jingled through daily life. The varieties, however, elevate the 1920 beyond routine. The plain no-dot issues circulate most commonly in lower grades, while dot placements, single or double, command premiums in higher states, reflecting their relative scarcity within the overall output. In dirty, heavily worn condition like this one, the appeal lies not in mint luster but in survival and story, the coin as witness to a pivotal decade when Australia asserted its place on the world map. For those who have collected through boom and bust, the 1920 penny stirs particular nostalgia. It circulated when radios brought cricket scores and royal speeches into living rooms, when Model T Fords shared dirt tracks with sulkies, when a penny still held meaningful purchasing power. Its dirty state evokes the real Australia of the time. Gritty, hard-working, unpolished, qualities that resonate with older enthusiasts who value provenance over perfection. In club meetings or quiet conversations over tea, such pieces prompt memories of pocket money saved for picture shows, of Depression-era thrift, of the shift to decimal that made pre-decimal coins instant relics. It fits seamlessly into the George V penny series, bridging the early plain scroll issues with later kangaroo designs, appealing to date-set builders, variety hunters, and those drawn to the post-war narrative. The dots add a detective element, turning ownership into an ongoing quest for understanding. As we draw this appreciation to its thoughtful end, we note the compelling evidence from the marketplace that underscores its lasting magnetism. While this 1920 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny, presented in dirty condition bearing the honest accumulation of grime, wear and time's gentle assault, has realized a noteworthy $67,400 in a recent private transaction, likely propelled by a desirable variety, strong provenance, or keen collector interest. Superior circulated examples command hundreds to low thousands, while choice uncirculated pieces with attractive toning or luster achieve several $1,000s, and the finest gem grade. Specimens, particularly those with rare dot configurations or full original color, have fetched tens of thousands in competitive auctions. Next up, now turn our attention to a particularly intriguing survivor from the early 1920s, the 1922 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny. This bronze piece was born in a year of bustling mint activity as the nation recovered from war and influenza, expanded its cities, and welcomed the first waves of modern conveniences like radio broadcasts and motor vehicles. With a combined mintage exceeding 12 million from Melbourne and Perth, then often called Sydney Mint for Perth's output, the 1922 stands as one of the most prolific dates in the George V penny series, yet within that abundance lie hidden layers of fascination. Distinct obverse varieties, the Indian versus London styles, differing in portrait details and rim denicle count, reverse lettering bases, curved or flat, and an array of date spacing configurations, narrow, wide, extra wide, with upright or spiked nines, toenail variants. Subtleties that transform the seemingly ordinary into objects of dedicated pursuit for veteran collectors who relish the detective work of die studies and variety attribution. We proceed with measured care, examining each facet individually, as one might trace the lines of an old map that once guided family journeys across the continent. The broader milieu first draws us in. The 1920s dawned with promise in Australia, returned servicemen rebuilding lives, women exercising newly won franchise rights, and an economy adjusting to peacetime production. Mints worked overtime to supply small change for growing populations, resulting in this high-output year split between facilities. No mint marks to distinguish them outwardly, yet telltale die characteristics reveal their origins. Despite the generous production, roughly 12,697,000 pieces across variants, attrition has been severe. Losses in daily use, melting in later metal drives, environmental damage from Australia's diverse climates, and the indifference of generations who viewed pennies as disposable have left far fewer intact examples than raw figures suggest, particularly those bearing rarer die pairings or date placements that command attention from specialists. Let us first contemplate the obverse, where King George V crown bust faces left in McKennell's classic rendition, complete with imperial regalia and the encircling legend, Georgiev's V.D.G. Brit, OMN, REX FDIND, IMP. Two principal obverse types appear in 1922, the scarcer Indian die, with upstroke of N in OMN aligning precisely with a rim denicle, often linked to curved base reverse lettering, and the more common London style. In this coin's bad condition, surfaces heavily abraded from prolonged circulation, details merged by friction, perhaps overlaid with stubborn dirt from years in forgotten pockets or humid storage. The portrait appears weathered and indistinct, the crown's points and beard softened almost to impressionistic form. Yet this erosion carries its own poetry. It mirrors the passage of time itself, the way everyday heroes and ordinary folk wore down the coin while building the nation, evoking memories for those who recall when such pennies funded modest joys amid economic flux. Shifting our gaze separately to the reverse, the design remains faithfully text-centric. One penny centered boldly between scrolls within a beaded circle, Commonwealth of Australia, arcing above, 1922, below. The lettering base on the scrolls, curved on some dies, flat on others, serves as a key diagnostic alongside the myriad date varieties that numismatists catalog meticulously, narrow dates with upright nines, wide dates aligning numerals to specific denicles, extra-wide configurations, spiked or toenail nines. These nuances, subtle to the casual eye, become thrilling revelations under magnification. In the present bad state, with legends smoothed, high points flattened, and dirt clinging tenaciously to crevices, the reverse still conveys the design's sturdy clarity, the accumulated grime, and we're at a layer of verisimilitude, suggesting a coin that truly lived, passed hand to hand in bustling markets, tucked into workers' overalls, or saved in childhood tins during the lead-up to the Great Depression. The coin's physical form endures unchanged, 30.8 millimeters across, 9.45 grams of bronze, 97% copper alloyed for toughness, plain edge, metal alignment, specifications that ensured seamless integration into pockets accustomed to imperial coppers. What sets 1922 apart is its variety richness within high mintage, offering endless avenues for specialization. Some collectors chase the Indian obverse specimens, others the wide date rarities or flat base reverses, turning ownership into an ongoing scholarly adventure. In bad condition like this, the value springs not from pristine fields, but from the preservation of key diagnostics amid honest, where appealing to those who prefer coins with biography over laboratory shine. Such pieces stir profound nostalgia in mature collectors. They circulated when silent films gave way to talkies, when cricket tests captivated the wireless, when a penny still commanded respect in daily commerce. The dirt and where evoke the grit of the era, dusty outback roads, smoky city streets, the resilience of families navigating change, qualities that resonate deeply with those who grew up treasuring pre-decimal relics as links to grandparents' stories. Within the George V series, the 1922 serves as a bridge, abundant enough for accessible collecting, yet layered with enough varieties to reward deep study, complementing scarcer neighbors while standing proud in date runs or thematic assemblages focused on 1920s Australia. As we bring this heartfelt exploration to its conclusion, we recognize the marketplace's resounding affirmation of its appeal. While this 1922 Commonwealth of Australia 1 penny, presented in bad condition with significant wear-accumulated dirt and softened details reflective of genuine circulation history, has achieved an impressive $172,900 in a recent private sale, undoubtedly buoyed by a sought-after variety, such as a rare Indian obverse, specific date configuration, or exceptional provenance. Circulated examples in average grades trade for modest sums, while extremely fine to choice uncirculated pieces realize hundreds to several $1,000s, and the elite gem quality survivors, especially those exhibiting full original color, sharp strikes, or elusive die combinations, command prices from $5,000 upward to well into five figures at leading auctions, underscoring the sustained enthusiasm for these foundational Commonwealth pennies as cherished pieces of national heritage and prudent tangible investments in an ever-shifting economic climate.